Hello there, and welcome to the third episode in the lobby system series of tutorials. And today we're going to be giving an example. We're going to be giving an example of a game that you can create using the lobby system and how to make it work. So last episode I left you off with how to get things started up. Now we can go ahead and cover what all of these do and how we can utilize it. Of course, all of these have a small explanation through a comment, except for max players, which should be pretty self-explanatory. But for the sake of helping someone understand more on how this works, we're going to go ahead and cover this so I can further explain what some of these do in vocal form. So, first things first, we have the process method. This is single-handedly the most important method for the entire system in making the game. This is your game loop. All your game mechanics are handled within this method. Now, it is worth mentioning that this works a lot like a video game, in a way. Because if we were to go into super implementation, you'd like to note that this game right here, it sleeps for 30 milliseconds every loop. This is done to try and simulate a single frame in a traditional GUI video game that runs at 60 FPS. This will save RAM resources and give you a better idea on how many times a second this code is executed. So pretty much from here on out, every loop that happens with this process method is going to be called a frame, as if this is a GUI game. So when I say a frame, that pretty much just means a single time the code is executed inside this process method. Because much like a game loop in a traditional GUI video game, this will be all the code located within process will be ran every 35 milliseconds, just know that, roughly, every 35 milliseconds. So, yeah, all the game code will go in here. This is how the game mechanics are processed. Now, there's also get message style. Get message style is pretty simple. If you are new to the JDA, all you have to do is just do return new message builder. And that's all you have to do. And of course you want to go ahead and oh no, it's already there. Cool. Okay, so yeah, we have new message builder. Just do that and that'll be fine. However, if you are someone who is experienced with the JDA, you can add style to your message by creating a new message builder object. Message builder message is equal to new message builder. You can go ahead and use the message and create whatever you want. You can append, you can get all this other stuff, set content, set embed, set nuance, TDTS, blah blah blah. You can do whatever you want with it. You can even strip mentions if you want to. So, that's all you have to do. And of course, lastly, you will return the message. Of course, in the meantime, we're not doing that. Just go ahead and delete that, and that's that. This is done on purpose because there are a couple of automatic messages that are sent, and just so it stays true to how you design your bots. Any message that the lobby system automatically sends will send it in your style. So whatever style that you like to use for your bot, it will use this builder to send that message. So you won't have to worry about inconsistencies with how your messages look. It'll work just fine. Okay, so there's the message style. Next is AFK timer completed. So pretty much every lobby that exists in the lobby system is going to continue existing until the max players has been met. Let's say a game you make takes 4 players. When a new lobby is created, it will have 1 player. This lobby will not stop and will not cancel itself out, or at least start the game, until it has finally reached the maximum players, where the game can finally be started. With that being said, if you want to have a timer for your lobby, if you want the lobby to, like, say, end within 5 minutes, what you need to do is create a timer of some sort and use this timer to return a boolean. And if the timer is completed, it will return true here, which will end the lobby and just stop the game completely. That way, any players who create a new lobby don't have to wait forever for it to start. So this method exists in case you want to add a timer to a lobby's lifespan. This way, any dead lobbies don't run forever. This both saves RAM usage and keeps players' sanity intact. And this is very true. However, if you don't want any kind of timer for your lobby, all you have to do is just simply return false, which means the lobby will last forever as long as the max players is not met. Okay. Next, we have max players, which is pretty simple. You can consider max players to be just the number of players that will be existing inside your game. In this case, for rock, paper, scissors, we're going to have 2 players, and that will be the maximum player count. You can make this as much as you want. You can make it 500 if you want, but for now we're making it 2. AFK report game end threshold. A long name, I know, but is important in keeping track of reports. If this amount of people have reported someone for being AFK, the game will auto-end. What does that mean? Well, pretty much what happens is, if it is a player's turn, and he is for whatever reason AFK, and is not doing anything within the game, people can send the message report. If they send the message report in the bot's DMs, it will add 1 to the report counter. Now, if we go into the super implementation, we will notice param user, param user. So let's go ahead and sorry. Note, set this to return 0 or less than 0 if you don't want the game to ever auto-end. Not recommended for player sanity. So if you don't want this report system to work, you can just set this to 0 or -1 or -1000. Doesn't matter. However, if, let's say this is a 6-player game, and it's player 5's turn, and let's say player 5 had to suddenly go and didn't make a move. Well, now all the other 5 players are just waiting for player 5. Well, let's say you make the game end automatically if 3 out of the 6 people report someone for being AFK. Okay? If this is true, as soon as 3 people report someone for being AFK, the game will automatically end, and it will inform the people that the game ended because of AFK reports. So, for this situation though, since we're playing rock, paper, scissors, we only need 1 player to report the other player for being AFK. Lastly, we have get new player. This exists as a way to get around the pain that is Java generics. Alright, parameters, user. This is already taken care of internally. Just know it exists and you use it. Lastly, it returns. You will be returning a new object of a class that you're using for players, like new tic-tac-toe player user. So, remember when I talked about RPS player and how it uses this constructor right here, which calls the superclass constructor? You need to use new player. And this is done for a very important reason, which is something called Java generics. You don't have to worry about that. All you have to do here, and literally all you have to do, is do new RPS player user. And there you go, that's it. That is seriously all you have to do. You don't have to do anything else besides that with this method. And that's it. And of course it doesn't have to be RPS player, just use whatever player class you use, or whatever you passed in here. That's all you have to do. Okay, so there we go. So right now, all these are set up, ready to go, except for the process. This is the actual game code. Let's go ahead and start making our game. How far in are we? Okay, that's fine. Okay, so let's go ahead and make a rock, paper, scissors game. So, first things first. One thing I highly recommend, because the process method will not run until the game starts, and of course the game won't start until the max players has been met. So as soon as the game starts, what I would recommend developers do, is create a flag, private boolean game start message, and set this to true. Now, so the first time the game starts, what you want to go ahead and do is, I would recommend you do, is do if game start message. We're going to go ahead and send start message, and then we're going to go ahead and set game start message to false. And then we're going to create this. So we're going to go ahead and below that, private void go e dot. Okay. So first things first, I should mention that every single player object has two different things. It has a controller and it has a user variable. A controller variable and a user variable. You're going to be using both of these. The user variable is responsible for holding a few things. One of these things is a channel and the other is an ID. And also you have other things, like you can get game status, which doesn't really matter for you, you don't have to use this. But you can get index. Get index you don't have to use either, you don't have to worry about that. Right now the only thing you have to worry about is channel and ID. For now, we need the channel. The channel is a message channel, and this channel is pretty much where you're going to be sending messages to. So we're going to go ahead and do dot send message. Now, of course, if you want to, you can actually just use your own get message style method dot append, and let's say game start. And there you go. Now we can do that every one. This will send a message to every player when the game starts. Now we can do this, or of course we can just simply put in the string here, blah blah blah. But for this situation, we're just going to go ahead and use get message style just for example. There we go. And there you go. Now we're going to be sending that message to everyone. And this is only going to happen once, of course. So send start message, and now the game is started. There you go. So now remember, like I said in the last tutorial, there is a players variable that holds, it's an array list of RPS player as within players. If you want an example of this, and what that means, we can go to hold down control, open decoration, and it'll bring us to here, which is this variable right here. And of course there's game status, but we'll get to that in a second. Okay, so there we go. Now it sends that information here. Next, what we can do is move forward. So remember, we're gonna have to use a lot of different flags, because as we already know, this is going to execute about every 30 milliseconds or so, kind of like a frame. So every frame, all this code is going to execute. This is why we had a boolean here to set a flag that lets us know if we need to send this. Now, our next step is to get some inputs from players. So what we can do now, since there's 2 players, we can go ahead and just, well, there's a few ways we can go about choosing what player's turn it is. Because remember, since the player's variable is an array list, we can literally use a variable to get the player's turn. Let's say player 0 is technically player 1. If there's like 500 players, we can get player 297 by getting entity 296. And there you go, now we can run whatever we want to do. So that's as simple as that. However, let's say we want to loop through it. Let's say right now we need to do is go ahead and compare stuff. So you're going to be using for loops quite a lot, let me tell you. user.channel.sendMessage waiting for player 1. Now there are other ways to make this game. I'm just going for the simple way of making the game, but there are many other ways you can make a rock paper scissors game work like this. For the time being, we're just doing it like this. Waiting for player 1. For this situation, you might want to actually move this. Since the way we're formatting this, we might want to move this in here. Waiting for player 1. Hello everyone. Okay, so I'm going to need to quickly do a thing here. Unfortunately, the ending part of this tutorial was lost and is not able to be retrieved. So I'm going to have to kind of touch on a few things that you're not going to be able to watch. Don't mind the rest of this stuff, we'll cover that in the next tutorials. One thing you will not be able to see is the fact of the matter of, at the end of a game, when the game ends, always set the status variable to game status.complete, because there is a game status variable inside game entity, and this helps determine if the game is complete, pending, or running. If you make this at the end of every game, when the game is finished, always do game status.complete. That way it knows that the game is finished and everything is a-okay to stop the game. Once the game got complete is set, once it's set to complete, the lobby system will handle the rest and it'll be a-okay. However, you may want to mention to everyone that the game is complete, because the lobby system does not inform people when the game finishes, so you might want to do that if you choose to. You can even notify people that player 1 or player 2 won. And of course, there is also the inputs here. The controller, when you get an input, it returns a string, obviously. However, there's a problem that you could have or encounter. Pretty much every time you ask for an input, you get it, no problem. However, when you ask for an input, it does not clear it. That input you asked for is not cleared at all. And pretty much what will happen is, if you don't clear an input at the end of someone's turn, that input will remain there the entire time. So pretty much what will happen is, let's say on player 3's turn, he has the choice of fight or run. And let's say player 3 chooses run. If you don't clear that player 3's input in his controller, if you don't clear that input, the next time it becomes player 3's turn, the next time it becomes his turn, his controller will return run again, because you never cleared it. And since it returns run, it'll actually cause a problem to where it will really use that input, and it won't give player 3 the prompt to ask for another input. So pretty much just imagine it as if you had a controller, you pressed X, and like it never cleared that input, so for the rest of the game it just detects that you pressed X even though you're not pressing it. So always clear input at the end of a player's turn. And at the end of the game, always clear everyone's input. You can do that by doing the variable, controller, clear input and be able to take care of that no problem. Now another thing I should mention that I didn't mention last time is when an input is cleared, it does not return null. It doesn't return a null, it actually just returns, like it returns like a blank string, or it returns a spacebar. So keep that in mind. If you clear an input, it doesn't just return a null. It actually returns as either a blank string or this. And that's how that works. So there you go. Just keep those things in mind, and that's all you really have to worry about with it. Just make sure you always clear the input, because if you don't clear the input, it'll keep that input every time it loops through. And of course, if you get an input, it returns a string, and that's how I did it with this game when I finished it. It was check input, it got the get input. Of course, I made a check input variable, method that checks the input. First of all, I did compare to. Of course, if the string is less than or equal to this blank string, that means they didn't put rock, paper, or scissors, so it just returns false. And then, of course, it does this to see if you put an invalid input, and if you put a valid input, it pretty much assigns the player 1 choice or the player 2 choice to whatever you put in. And then once both players have put something in, aka they're not both equal to null, it will notify that the game is complete. I didn't bother doing any comparisons between the two to actually finish the game. I just made this as an example. Alright, so thanks for watching. Sorry for the unorthodox video ending here. Unfortunately, that was lost. I couldn't do anything about that. But you will be able to, for the next 2 videos, it's just going to be some concepts and some ideas to possibly give you some more ideas and ways to make your bot have more mechanics. But for the time being, you don't have to watch the other 2 videos in this series. Those are pretty much optional videos. For the time being, you have watched all you need to know. Just make sure you always clear that input for the player at the end of their turn, and clear everyone's input at the end of the game. And when you want to end the game, you make sure you set status to game, status.complete. Once you've done all of that, everything will be fine. So just make sure set to complete at the end of the game, and of course clear input. If you ever find a moment where you're testing a game and for some reason when it reaches a player's turn it just skips through their turn, chances are it's because you forgot to clear their input, and just make sure you did that. Alright, thanks for watching, hope you all have a good day.